I cannot stand Mr. Baseball.
Oh, you son of a bitch.
I knew it.
Here we go.
Yeah, I tried to throw a little bit back.
Love that logo, love that jersey, love that color scheme, everything about it. Welcome to episode 76 of the NASPod, the home of sports talk for the average Joe. My name is Jason.
I'm David.
And welcome aboard. And let's just get this going since last episode we talked about my drafts. And David loves it when I talk about fantasy football. I am 2-0 in one league and 0-2 in the other league. So I'm at both ends of the proverbial fantasy football spectrum.
There you go.
In my office league, I am currently second place. The only reason I am second place is that the person in first happens to have more points than I do at the moment.
Well, at least like you said last episode, San Francisco came through between Kittle and McCaffrey.
Yeah, McCaffrey's doing good for me in both leagues. Now, in the othership league, I am 0-2, and my team is it's a super deep league. It's 14 teams, 2 flexes. It's just deep rosters, and unfortunately, it's one of those leagues where one injury can just kill your entire season because there just isn't anything out there to really back up what you got. But it's early in the season. I could very well, turn things around and finish in second in both, or I could turn things around and finish in first in one of them. So I'm not too upset at the moment. Season's young. The season is young. And
It just started for you.
yeah. And speaking of football, let's go to a topic now for the first half here that harkens back to the very first episode 3 years ago. We've been, you all know we love our minor league sports. We've talked about minor league baseball, minor league hockey. We've talked about arena football numerous times on here. And we've also talked about the XFL and the USFL numerous times here on this show. The word around town is that the XFL and the USFL are in talks to merge. I think this is a smart move.
It's going to be an interesting move because are they going to keep it 2 leagues? Are they going to just move it to 1 league? That's the whole big question there, because I know a lot of thought in my mind is maybe this is a step towards the NFL having a tiered minor league.
Well,
like how hockey has NHL, AHL, ECHL. Would this be the same or close to it for the NFL?
So as of 1 hour ago, and this was posted on the USFL subreddit, 12 teams would survive, with each league contributing 6 teams. USFL coaches' respective statuses seem less certain than those in the XFL due to the way their contracts were written, as in USFL coaches have a 1-year deal, whereas XFL coaches do not. And the new league that emerged will be more like the XFL than the USFL. What'll happen is they'll play, the rumor is they will play in 6 hubs, USFL style, rather than the teams having a specific home city as well.
So basically they're going bubble style.
Which is what the USFL did in the first season and the second season, whereas the XFL, through all incarnations of its life, they always had host cities for their teams. If you were in Birmingham for the Maniacs, you were playing in Birmingham, Alabama. If you were in New York for the Hitmen, you were playing in New York. If you were in DC for the Defenders, you were playing in DC. I'm kind of interested in the team, each league providing 6 teams. What teams survive? Who gets cut is really the big question, I would say.
I mean, would they have tryouts for that? Would they have tryouts to see who gets cut, who wouldn't? Would they go off of standings from last time? From their last season? I mean, that's just right there a lot of questions. And also, to me, with the hub style, if you want to go to a game, like, if we want to go to a Philadelphia game, we couldn't now if they're one of the ones
Well,
that
to be
are
fair, we couldn't
not only
last
cut
season
or
or the
hub.
first season.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, though, as they are moving back to where they would go to their host cities, now that's for those cities who want to see that or want to watch that, now they can't.
Right. Now, looking at the USFL standings, since we're talking about the teams here. You could take the top 3 teams from each division. The North Division, the top 3 teams were the Pittsburgh Maulers, the Michigan Panthers, and the Philadelphia Stars. From the South Division, it was the Stallions, the Breakers, and the Gamblers. Which I feel like you're getting some pretty decent regions and cities covered under that. Now, with the XFL, I'm not quite sure on what their final standings were. I'd have to go in and take a look while we're doing this here. But if you take the top 6 teams from that league as well, I feel like
there are only 8 teams.
Right.
So if you want to do, so you would have to take, you could take the top 3, which means the Las Vegas Vipers, which were 2-8. And the Orlando Guardians that are 1-9, they'd be out.
And I feel like that's perfectly fine. Because let's be honest. I think when both the Rock's incarnation of the XFL, let's clear this up. The Rock's incarnation is XFL 3.0, and we'll call the second Vince McMahon iteration the XFL 2.0. From both XFL 2.0 and XFL 3.0. The premier team was the DC Defenders. So you have to include the DC Defenders in whatever this hybrid merger league's going to be. They had the most rabid fan base. They had the most dedicated fan base. And the team performed on the field for them. They are the crown jewel of this merger in my book.
Well, I do have to say another team that actually really stood out with basically a good crowd for every time I've watched the games would be St. Louis.
Well, and that's another reason to keep St. Louis.
Really, St. Louis had, from what I was watching, a huge, passionate crowd. Like, they were being decked out like you would see at an NFL game with, like, the body paint.
Well,
like, huge signs. I mean, they were really passionate about having the Battlehawks there.
Well, and you have to think, the St. Louis football fan base got completely hosed by the Rams owner. I can't think of his name now. Stan Kroenke, I want to say it is. That might not be the right pronunciation. But he pulled the team because he got a much more lucrative deal to move to LA and move the Rams back to Los Angeles, which is fine. I get it. The Rams were originally the LA Rams. I'm cool with it. But you've kind of just taken advantage of a very loyal city to the NFL, because before the Rams went to St. Louis, that city got hosed before because they used to have the St. Louis Cardinals. And then the Cardinals were pulled back in 88 to become the Phoenix Cardinals, later the Arizona Cardinals. St. Louis has a rough history with football, not because the fans don't care. It's because the league team owners abuse that fan base. So the fact that they did show up for the Battlehawks should say this city appreciates professional football in all forms of it.
Now, the question is, though, if you go to the hub stance, one, would you pick a city that is within one of the teams that will be remaining? And two, will that hurt the teams? Like, will that hurt the fan base of the teams? Because now, let's say, for example, okay, yes, St. Louis Battlehawks. Now you can't go to their stadium to watch them. Will that lose some of the fan base for that, being now they can't go see them?
I mean, let's fantasy book this here. So you got to think DC being one of the premier teams, I can't stress enough just the visual of them playing in that soccer stadium. And granted, soccer stadiums are smaller here in the States than professional football stadiums. But that stadium was packed. Those fans were rabid. Like, you weren't going to find, outside of maybe St. Louis, you weren't going to find for the XFL a more passionate fan base. So my thought is you want to keep DC. And you want to reward that fan base for sticking with this team in this league. Make DC a hub. Who could you put there? Well, you could put Pittsburgh and Philadelphia there and have those three teams hubbed there.
You could.
Or, you could do Pittsburgh. Maybe Philly and DC might be the better option. But who do you match Pittsburgh up with? Oh, God. Because you don't want to do Pittsburgh and Michigan. And really, the top three teams of the South Division for the XFL are all in Texas, so you don't want to do that. Oh, shoot. You might have to do 3 teams at a hub or 4 teams at a hub for the first season. I'm sure the brain trust behind both leagues are trying to figure this out and make it work, whatever will be best for everyone. But, man, I'm sorry. DC's 9-1, and they were like the crown jewel of the XFL. You got to include them in this league. Whatever this USFXL will be.
Just start going through all the letters at this point. I mean, it's funny though how it was DC Fenders and the Arlington Renegades, and the Renegades won the championship.
You got to keep the Renegades too. I'm just looking at the regular season standings. I'm not doing playoffs. I'm just regular season.
But then comes the question, though: are they going to keep the same broadcasting?
Well, that's a whole other thing. So, as of 13 hours ago,
can of worms. That's a whole other can of worms on that one, because the USFL was Fox's toy.
Fox owns it,
basically. It's their toy. Exactly.
So, as of 13 hours ago, again from the USFL subreddit, information was leaked that all games will be broadcast over the air on network television. There will be no cable games. The games will specifically air on ABC, Fox, and NBC. The framework for the new league is well laid out, and sources are saying that pretty much the broadcast rights of it are done.
Because I know the XFL was on ESPN Plus. So would they just add that to the mix then because the XFL was on that?
Nope. So the XFL was on. Were they on both NBC? No, Fox and NBC were the USFL, correct?
Yes.
ABC and ESPN were specifically the XFL. So there'll be no ESPN coverage. It'll all be on ABC, along with Fox and NBC. So what you're probably going to see is something similar to the current NFL system for TV. Instead of Fox and CBS airing games on Sunday, and then a Saturday or Sunday night game on NBC, it might very well be ABC and Fox air games on Sunday afternoons or Saturday afternoons, and then at night it'll be like the NBC game. Or something along those lines, obviously. It may not be those exact stations at that exact time, but you get the gist of what I'm saying.
It's a general idea. It's a general idea at that point.
And you know what? I'm cool with that. I have no issue with that.
No, I mean, as long as the games would be able to be watched, I mean, that's all that matters at this point.
And I can see the argument for having it on the over the air on regular broadcast television, because I mean it's still, even people who don't pay for TV, you get like 36 channels with your internet automatically with Xfinity, so you're going to at least get ABC, something. Fox, and NBC. Yeah,
you're going to get something. Now also comes into the question of, will the pay scale stay the same too? So I know at one point we discussed the XFL and the USFL's pay scales. Now, will that change now because they are turning to one organization, or are they going to keep it the same, or
Well, that's an interesting
there's so
topic.
many ors?
Because one
Because
thing
at
we
that
have to
point,
keep
it's
in
just-
mind is both leagues have not turned a profit. They haven't. I mean, The Rock has admitted that he lost money on the first season of the XFL.
I believe it.
But I also believe that you're going to lose money in the first couple of seasons of a venture like this to begin with. You know, this isn't something where you're going to make money off the bat. You got to build it to make money. But this might be the best way to make both leagues exist instead of having them competing against each other unintentionally or intentionally, however you want to look at it. Instead of them competing against themselves, they merge together. They take the strongest assets of both and they make the most of it. And yeah, I think the smart move would be eventually to be a true minor league system for the NFL.
I just looked it up here. XFL lost an estimated $60 million its first season.
Yep.
I mean, if they do happen to become a minor league to the NFL, I mean, it could be good because look how the other minor leagues and the other sports are. How many times have we seen good players come up through the system to become great players? And maybe this
look
is just
at how
something
many...
where a guy comes out of college and he's good enough for the NFL, but he doesn't have the maturity or the what's the word I'm looking for here? Not just the maturity, but let's
maturity
say
is a good word.
Is it?
Yeah,
I'm just thinking just because of when you go into
mental
the NFL,
toughness for the NFL.
Yeah, there you go. Let's just do mental toughness, maturity. It's just sometimes those players are not able to handle it right off the bat. Some are, some aren't.
Right.
Maybe having this as a minor league system would help that because, like I said, look at the other minors between baseball and hockey. How many times have we seen players come up through and boom, they have the maturity. They now have the existence of being a great hockey player or a great baseball player.
I mean, even the NBA has their developmental league, and there's guys who've come their way up from the developmental league in the NBA and have become stars in the NBA. Developmental leagues or minor leagues or feeder leagues, however you want to call it, they serve a very valuable purpose. I mean, if we really want to get technical about it, you could claim that when the NFL had a stake in the Arena Football League, I think we could technically say that was a minor league system for the NFL. Because the NFL did own part of the league.
Yeah.
I mean, and let's look at the original XFL. Tommy Maddox, the star quarterback of, were they the LA Extreme? I want to say they were the LA Extreme. When they won the $1 million game or whatever their final game was called, he ended up playing for the Steelers as their starting quarterback up until Ben Roethlisberger was a rookie. These leagues have talented players who can serve a purpose in the NFL that if the NFL would just get on board and acknowledge that, you know what? Not every guy who comes out of college is tailor-made for the NFL, but there's a place where these guys can make money and we can help facilitate their growth through this system. And maybe they will make it to the NFL, or maybe they won't, but at least they have that opportunity.
Well, look at Steve Young. He played for the USFL, and look what he is now.
Yeah.
A Hall of Famer.
Not just Steve Young. Not just Steve Herschel Walker.
Yeah, Herschel Walker.
Doug
was another big
Flutie.
name.
Oh gosh, I'm blanking on his name now. I can see him in my head. He was the Giants quarterback. Him and Steve Young had the greatest game no one watched in the USFL because it was blacked out. It was
Doug Flutie, was it?
no, it was not Doug Flutie, because Doug Flutie was the quarterback of the New Jersey, New York Generals. He was the quarterback for the Houston Gamblers. Oh, shoot. Who is it? Now it's good. Jim Kelly.
There it is.
Jim Kelly came from the USFL.
Yeah. I mean, and those are big names. It's not like those names are something to, like, put your nose up at. I mean, if the NFL would get on board and have the XFL, USFL, or the ex-USFL or USXFL, however they want to do the lettering, if they want to do a minor league, I mean, think how much that would profit the NFL into getting talent or finding talent at that.
I also think if the NFL put their weight behind this merged league, total hypothesis here, or hypothetical, I should say, total hypothetical here. If the NFL put their weight behind this merged USXFL, as we'll call it until they actually come up with a proper name, that I think would give more fans a reason to watch. I think it would make fans feel secure in supporting a team from this league, because I think that's part of the reason why both these leagues haven't had big numbers in ratings or big numbers in the stadiums, is because it's new, and history has dictated that spring football can be successful, albeit very fleetingly. So people are hesitant to kind of put their seal of approval on a team and supporting that team. Whereas I think if the XFL puts their money behind it and their support behind it and their PR behind it, or whatever they're going to do or could do, I think it would give people the security to fully invest as a fan into the league and the teams.
Well, I also think the XFL needs to not just, I mean, yes, one season in, but also they need to kind of, I mean, don't get me wrong, I think this season helped kind of rebrand from what people think the XFL is. Because when people think
that
XFL,
version of the XFL hasn't existed since 2001.
Exactly, but in people's minds, it's still there of, is this going to be the same ridiculous thing? I don't want to watch it because it's that same ridiculous thing. Despite they didn't watch it, maybe they might have and changed their mind. Who knows? But some people still have that mindset.
But even the original XFL 1.0, it was the beta stage.
The beta stage. It's the trial version.
But even XFL 1.0, it was still just a football league. Yes, did they have scantily clad cheerleaders? Yes, they did. Was Vince McMahon way too over the top and full of himself? Absolutely he was, because he was riding the wave of just buying out his competition in professional wrestling. The dude's ego was out of control because he bought his competitor in pro wrestling. Like, factor that in, and it makes a little more sense why Vince was the way he was then. But that second XFL 2.0 from 2020 was really good. And the sports media were acknowledging that it was actually really good. And then COVID happened. So I'm not saying that it's not. I'm just saying, like, how some people still mindsets are when it comes to. Some people are stupid.
Some people are one direction and don't want to. They see it once and they don't give it another shot despite the changes. I mean,
but to me, that's on them.
No, it's on them, absolutely. But don't get me wrong. I mean, I enjoyed watching the XFL. I enjoyed watching it. I watched the championship game.
The XFL was more fun to watch than the USFL because there were actually people in the stands regularly for XFL games. Whereas
yes, I agree with that one. 100%.
The USFL had a hard time drawing people to the stadium. And I really don't understand why. I'm still perplexed by how the XFL could draw a crowd and the USFL couldn't. But maybe this merge will help rectify that situation. I don't know. I know we're probably running really close to going overtime for this first half, are we not? We're overtime for this half.
I mean, the XFL did draw a crowd, yes.
Okay.
The USFL, yeah, that was
Couldn't
like what you
draw
saw. Like,
flies to sugar.
is that what you're going with? What you trying
That's
to
what
make
we're
this
going with.
PG rated right now, or what?
Yeah,
I mean,
well,
that's not your normal thing there here.
I'm trying here.
But no, I mean, yeah, the XFL definitely drew a crowd for sure. I mean, it was really nice to see that crowd, really nice to feel that energy. Even just watching the game, you could just see the crowd behind everything. Like you could see the
Right.
crowd behind the team, the excitement in the crowd, and things like that. Where the USFL was like going to a peewee game, that too. But I'm just saying a peewee game where it's like herding chickens.
Yeah.
That's my thought on it.
No, I'm good.
I mean, I'm hoping this comes about. I mean, I'm hoping this merger does something good to help the game, to help those players who come out of college but not quite ready for the NFL. And then
I agree. I've always thought for decades now, I've thought the NFL should have a minor league developmental league system to grow, because they've done it a few times. They should do it here permanently.
Well,
they had NFL Europe.
This is their chance. This is an opportunity for them to have that.
Oh, fuck it. Let's go long. The NFL has invested in other, not just arena football. They invested in the World League of American Football, which later became World League Football, or the World Football League, and then later became NFL Europe. They invested in that back in 1991. They put their money and their weight behind it then. They did put their weight behind the AFL. Like, the NFL has dabbled in a developmental league of sorts, but they never really stuck with it long term. Like, the longest term, I guess you'd have to say, would be NFL Europe, because it started as the World League back in 91 and it ended, I think, 2008. But it didn't stay in the States long term. It left the States in 93. Like, keep something in the States. Grow that end of the sport here in America. Like, yes, are there small football league, professional football leagues that exist all around the world? There is. And there's a documentary about a German professional football league that I want to watch in the worst way because it looks super interesting.
I mean, if they could just, this is their prime opportunity. This is their chance to have that type of system here in the U.S. that can be utilized fully as a minor league system.
Yes.
It is here fully.
Agree.
It's just, will the NFL actually take that step in endorsing this as a minor league system? Maybe as, I know what the XFL was like for rules, developmental league, just for that, to test out rules and things like that.
I think that was something they were working towards,
but
even more reason to work towards it.
Even more reason to work towards having that minor league system.
Take it from independent ball like the Atlantic League and make it affiliated ball like the International League in baseball. Come on now, people. But I'm off my soapbox. I just wanted to vent about the NFL investing in other leagues and not really fully going behind it. But anyway, I'm good on this topic. I'm excited to see what happens.
I'm eager to see what happens too, to see how this pans out. So I'm good. You good?
I'm good.
Okay, we're good. So that is the end of the first half. We'll see you in a bit.